What's up, guys? Been a while. Been working hard. Just haven't been able to record stuff. Let's get right into it. Today, I want to talk about fitness myths, some of the ones that I've had to deal with, and a couple of gotchas that you're going to want to know. So, I hear things like squats are bad for your knees, squats are bad for your back, deadlift is bad for your back, overhead press is bad for your shoulders, running is bad for your knees. The list goes on, but for the purposes of time, we'll keep it to the concept that a given motion is somehow bad for a particular body part. These types of blanket statements cause new fitness enthusiasts to avoid basic movements entirely. They will villainize whole training methodologies because they include one of these forbidden movements. There's a lot of bad information that comes from people who actually mean well. Maybe one of these movements is bad for them specifically, and they just don't realize that not everyone else suffers with their issue. No two hip joints are created equally, therefore, there is no perfect squat stance for everyone. There are some basic guidelines that can help you be safe while figuring out your specific stance, but beyond that, we have to admit that we're all just learning what works for us. And over time, that can change too. This is why we need to open a dialogue with our bodies and begin to understand what it is telling us. For example, pain is a message that requires context to understand. It may not mean that we're doing something bad, but we may need to slow things down until the body's ready. It could be that the movement that caused the pain was too advanced and we need to back off, but we don't trash the movement forever. I've been told by medical professionals that my lifting was causing my pain. Luckily for me, I kept the receipts. My pain all started long before I took the gym seriously. My primary training regimen included running, calisthenics, and half-assed activation recovery. Good old Army PT. I did very little outside training because I trusted that 1 hour per day was enough to keep me healthy. I followed the manual to a T. Army always has a manual. Had I listened to my body, I would have known that something was wrong long before I got hurt. Long story short, I wasn't taking care of my body, pushed it to injury and beyond. Then, because I clearly don't learn things the first time, I kept trying to push my body before it was healed. Kind of like when you charge a battery part way and then try using it before it's done, over time, the battery loses its ability to accept a full charge and dies even faster. I did this for years until I began to believe that my body was just no good. It was made broken, and I was always going to be in pain. This is when those myths I mentioned above started creeping in and worsening my problems. I believed it was the running that ruined my knees, and I couldn't go to the gym because the heavy lifting would be bad for my already incapacitated back. So I stretched, took vitamin M, Motrin, became sedentary, and drank heavily. I took on a victim mindset and had a good long pity party. When my daughter was born, I realized that I couldn't sustain these habits. I had a family that needed me to be combat ready. So I doubled down on training any way I could. Couldn't run, so I walked as fast as I could. I worked constantly to improve my push-ups until I maxed out that event on the PT test. Sit-ups were brutally painful, but I still managed to max those out too. Still believing that the gym would be harmful, I just kept doing good old Army PT. Surely, if I just worked harder, I could overcome these injuries. The definition of insanity is something to the effect of doing the same thing over and over again while expecting a different result. I should have had my own personalized straitjacket. I trusted in the Army Technical Manual on Physical Fitness. It was in black and white, so if it didn't work, I must not be doing enough. Surely a higher dosage of this ineffective medicine will solve the problem. After doing this for over a year, my pain level became unbearable. I had started running again even though it caused pain. I ignored it when the pain started spreading throughout my body and becoming more intense. I told myself to grit my teeth and get it done. I actually grit my teeth so much that I broke them. 3 of my molars were cracked and required filling. One of them eventually had to be crowned because of the damage. I slowly began to realize that I couldn't do this forever. I needed to make some changes, but I didn't know what to do. I had no education in fitness, so I started looking at the internet for knowledgeable people, because nobody on the internet would put up bad information. Several months and mistakes later, I was beyond frustrated. I had finally read enough to know that there are some contradictory opinions and studies, and there really isn't a great way to weed them out. I decided I would have to start using my body as a science experiment and keep notes. In my quest to gain some muscle mass to hopefully protect my broken joints, I had put on a good deal of excess body fat. I had begun training in the gym and using machines for anything that hurt too bad to use a barbell for, and I used the maximum gains excuse to dirty bulk. I gained 15 pounds in a year, and the inconsistent training was certainly not producing a strong enough stimulus for all of that to be muscle. It felt like I had tried everything and failed miserably. I was barely any stronger, I was much fatter, and I had a newfound respect for the word depression. Even on the junior enlisted pay, which is poverty level, I managed to drink a 6-pack and a bottle of liquor just about every week, in addition to going to the bar each weekend. I had tried high carb, low carb, and even dangerously low fat. I lost 20 pounds in 6 months by eating 10 grams of fat, 200 grams of protein, and 150 to 200 grams of carbs at a starting body weight of 200 pounds. Yeah, I was on a starvation diet, training for 2 hours, 5 days a week, and taking all the fat burner supplements I could. But the Army gave me all the attaboys for losing the weight, never once questioning how I did it or whether I was any healthier. Through that process, I developed minor anxiety and severe sleep issues. But then is always better, right? When high pain peaked in the last year of my service, I started going to the doctor and asking for help beyond the recommendation to stop running. They gave me NSAIDs, every version of Motrin you could imagine, and sent me out the door. Like a dutiful soldier, I complied and did my best. I took these pills for months, which is not good for your gut. Surprise. We cycled through different options until we had tried them all. I had literally had every pill in their arsenal for pain. I'd gotten cortisol shots, a year's worth of biofreeze, you name it. Each time they gave me the same packet on stretching, which had just as much effect as the pills, which is to say none. When I finally yelled at the doctor to stop trying quick fixes and help me feel human again, I was medically separated from the Army. I was given a bundle of pills on my way out the door, told I was now categorized as disabled, and given an appointment with the VA 3 months after my final day in service. Well, fuck you too. It was about this time I had discovered clean eating, thanks to an internet personality, and became obsessed with reading food labels. He was jacked and lean, and he ate this way, so it must be legit. I would only allow myself to eat specific foods, and nothing could come from a box. Dairy was evil, bacon was everything, and frozen vegetables were fake. I did the elimination diet and decided that dairy, green peppers, and bread were no good. I ate chicken breast, top brown steak, or fish, olive oil, sweet potato, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and fruit. I ate only these things for months. I was diligent, prepping my food each week, in the gym 5 days a week, stretched for 30 minutes before each gym session. I was doing all the things, and my weight never budged. I felt exhausted, bloated, stressed, and still in pain, and not that much stronger. I realized that I should not be working this hard to feel this bad. So, kept on looking for good information. After 3 months with a personal trainer in a big box gym, doing all the circuit training I could stand and a little bit more, I realized that I was going to have to get educated. I had made every mistake possible and suffered countless setbacks. The only time I had lost weight, I'd made myself sick doing it, and I had learned enough to know that that wasn't right. I never made any appreciable strength gains because I was always thinking that I would lose weight first so I could maximize muscle mass in a leaner body. But that was another myth. If you only gained muscle while being lean, sumo wrestlers wouldn't exist. So I was going to take my fluffy self and focus on getting strong in the hopes that would improve my pain levels. I found strength sports along the way to getting my personal trainer certification, and the happy side of my story begins. Turns out that squatting to depth with good form opens up the hips and drastically reduces the stress on your back and knees. Finally learned that when my body was saying I was in pain, that I should shift my focus to something that didn't hurt and let the body heal. I discovered that each body has its own preferred movement path for each lift, and these can change as the weight increases or as the lifter's body changes. Some safety things are fairly constant, but again, they are individual. One person's safe range of motion is going to be different from another's. But we all need to ensure that we are moving the weight with control through the full range of motion for maximum safety. Those who compete can make the personal decision to sacrifice that safety for a better performance on the platform. That almost always is a temporary adjustment that is discarded after the competition. On that note, people training for performance operate very differently from people training for general health. A bodybuilder needs visible abs to earn points on the stage. General health is achieved long before your body fat is low enough to see your abs. This dispels the myth that abs are a measure of health. This does not mean that literally all bodies are healthy. The bare fact is that body fat levels exceeding 25 to 30% increase a person's risk of death by preventable diseases. And I'll post a link to that article. Increase. Not guarantee that you're going to die today. Increase. There's a scale here. What I have learned from all this is that you cannot outsmart certain facts. Weight loss or gain is achieved by eating less or more than you need, respectively. Muscle and strength are gained through progressive overload. That's adding a little bit each session. What you eat can play a big role in how much of it you can consume. Weight training and cardio should complement each other in most programs. A perfect program or nutrition plan is useless if you can't stick to it. Sleep is not required for performance, but it is essential to health. And just because someone looks jacked and lean, it doesn't mean they know what they're talking about, and it doesn't absolve them from the possibility of being a money-grubbing dirtbag. So that's a good portion of the mistakes I've made along the way. If you're interested in hearing more about these myths and how they have been proven wrong, stay tuned. Please submit any myths you've heard below, and I'll be happy to call them out. Be well and be strong. Catch you next.